Hello, everyone. We are live. We were having multiple tech issues, so we are a little bit late. I'm speaking through my computer microphone since my other one is not working as well. So apologies if the audio isn't as good as usual. At least you can still hear me. With the other microphone, you would have not been able to hear me. So that's a positive. I'll have that fixed for whenever we go live next week. But you can still hear me, even if it's not as high quality, so that's fine. But I'm joined by Anthony to discuss everything in awards. We're bringing back weekly Oscar talk. The season's starting back up. It's going to be live streams, probably every Wednesday, talking about the weekly awards news, discussions, predictions, all that fun stuff. This week, Killers of the Flower Moon and the Gotham Awards are our main topics. How are you feeling getting into the heat of award season, Anthony?
I'm excited. I think that we have a lot of really interesting films. I think that we're going to talk about the Gothams, but certain eligibility rules changed, so we're seeing different films in different places. And I also think because of the strike, I think that's just putting a completely different perspective on awards promotion, on campaigning. We've always talked about will films actually be awarded on the merit of the film alone and not the campaign? Without actors to campaign, at least so far, that might figure into this in ways that we haven't seen before, especially with some of the precursors, which of course, do influence or motivate some of the later award shows. So I think it's a fascinating season as always. And I think specifically, I'm really interested to see this dichotomy between the big blockbusters, these big epics, with the smaller independent films. I feel like we have the best of both extremes this year, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. I think we're going to have multiple films that get 10 plus nominations this year is what I would guess. Lots of
2019, I think, is going to repeat itself, which is funny because it features one filmmaker who had a film in both.
And probably will not be, we'll get into it later. But two. You're right.
Gerwig and Scorsese both were nominated.
Both there. Yep. Well, let's get right into our first topic before we deep dive into Killers of the Flower Moon. The only news really this week were the Gotham Awards nominations, where we can quickly go over them. I can share my screen, but as I do that, Anthony, what were your thoughts overall on the nominations as you looked over them?
Yeah, so I think it's important to know that we had new rules for the Gothams that kind of didn't bar bigger movies from being in contention. Now, a lot of studios didn't prioritize the Gothams. They weren't looking to stake their name or any ground in these awards. But it's just interesting to see Ryan Gosling get nominated for Barbie at the Gotham Awards. I mean, imagine saying that sentence a couple years ago. But yeah, I think this is generally kind of what we were expecting in some places. We see Past Lives doing very well here. Showing Up, Kelly Reichardt doing very well here. I really admire the Gothams for doing just 2 acting categories with 10 nominees apiece. I think that is the future, and I hope that more award shows embrace that. What I also want to key in on is Lily Gladstone getting a nomination, not for Killers of the Flower Moon, but for a different film, because I think
Unknown
that shows
Country.
that shows how much love there is for Gladstone, and that helps you, especially when it comes to the main show. There is such an obvious pick of what you're going to be nominated for. The fact that then the indie people love her so much, no, they're not going to give it to her for Killers, but they want to award her. That speaks very well for her. And those were kind of my major takeaways. I'm also happy to see, it's funny how I think if you go down to Best International Feature, I think if you're looking, that is probably going to line up more with Best Picture than their Best Feature nominees, which is just an interesting ripple, but I think speaks to the expansion of the Academy, bringing in more international members. But even so, I don't like that idea that it's the international filmmakers that are voting for the international films. I just think that we're branching out where we see cinema. To quote Bong Joon-ho, the Oscars, are a local award show, though I think they're becoming more than that, and I think that's great. But I think you want to key in, because I think there is a world where all 4 of those films could be nominated for Best Picture. I think in all likely, I think definitely Poor Things, and I could see Anatomy of a Fall take it. And then the other 2, I think, are on the bubble. We'll see what happens, the momentum they get. But I think the Gothams, again, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're spotlighting indie films, except with Ryan Gosling, which we can debate. Do you think he should be here? We know we love the
We
performance. Should he be here?
we can sit. Let's start with best feature first overall, and then we'll get
Okay.
to that conversation when we get to it. Overall nominees here: Passages, Past Lives, Reality, Showing Up, and 1001. I have seen 2 of these. Oh no, 3 of these. I liked all of them. I think Past Lives is probably my favorite of the ones here, but I mean, they did, as you mentioned, open it up to bigger budget movies. Some of them, like I believe Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, a few others chose not to submit themselves, so they weren't able to get nominated anyways. But it is interesting to see what they did and didn't include. I like how they're still keeping, as you said, the independent soul to the ceremony, and they're not just completely going for the big blockbusters. And I think the winner here would probably be Past Lives, if I were to guess.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. I think it's such an emotionally stirring film, and I always question, we could do a deep dive as far as how often does the most likely Best Picture nominee win the category here. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I was very happy because I think Showing Up, 1001, these were films that came out in the spring, early in the year, and I'm glad they were remembered. Because Kelly Reichardt, I think you can always maybe depend on these smaller, the critics or these smaller award shows to come through. But still, she's a filmmaker that always requires that bump. And her films just always need that extra bit of attention so people can see how brilliant they are and how wonderful they are. And I'm glad Showing Up is getting that recognition.
Agreed. Also, I also kind of agree with this. Well, not the fact that it's a TV movie. I just don't. It's out of all these other ones. It does stick out a little bit. But I mean, these, as I should mention, these, I believe each category is decided on by separate juries of separate people, and each jury only has like 5 or 6 people in it. So these are very like specific tastes and specific people. So like don't read into these at all.
It's like the BAFTAs when for 2021 they were like, we have like 4 people on a jury, and then like the top 2 get in, and so I think listen, at this point, what's a movie? What's a television movie? It's kind of hard. I think it's wherever they decide to put it. I think with HBO, it's a little bit different just because it's not like Amazon Prime where like they release Manchester by the Sea and then release like Uncle Frank, and like those, have different places. HBO seems so synonymous with television. But again, I'm not interested in gatekeeping award shows. I think the reason why I like doing this show with you and talking about this is because we get to talk about movies in general. We have to put them through the construct of what's going to win and this, but it's more we get to talk about these movies. And for a movie like Reality, I'm happy that it can be talked about like this. Because I don't know, like think about the Emmys, especially like because we haven't even done
Emmys don't go for
this year's Emmys. And we haven't even done this year's Emmys. I feel like by the time we do next year's Emmys, Sydney Sweeney's already going to have that. I believe she'll already have that new rom-com with Glenn Powell. We would have moved on from this movie by then.
Yeah. And Trevor, known Lily Gladstone's fan, telling everyone to go watch The Unknown Country. I will be watching. I don't know if you're still here, Trevor, where we can watch it. I haven't looked into that, but
I think you can rent it, and I will be doing it. I am very happy.
I can watch it. I will. Okay. Am I frozen? Oh no, there we go. Tech issues.
Live show.
Okay. I know. Live show. Past Lives. I have some doubts in that movie in terms of its awards chances. I personally don't have it in picture right now. I think it would really just be picture and screenplay. And I think
the woman talking package.
It would be a woman talking package. I think women talking, they had trouble getting acting nominees because it was hard to pick one, whereas this one, if it's not able to get any acting nominations, it's an easy pick. I mean, Greta Lee, or I mean, we'd love TOU to be nominated, but I don't think
John Magaro. I think this is the thing about Women Talking when comparing it to Past Lives is that don't discount Frances McDormand was a producer, and it had the all-star cast. That does help it, and I do think Sarah Polley had some street cred. People had seen movies of hers. She was kind of like that indie star. Finally, it was kind of similar to Greta Gerwig as far as like she was a big name in the indie crowd, and now this was kind of the one that was putting her in the mainstream. or at least the
Mhm.
Academy mainstream. I don't, if Barbie's the mainstream, I don't know how close Women
Yeah.
Talking is to it, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Yes, I hope that Past Lives can maybe survive on critics groups, making people not forget it. Similar with very different movie with Mad Max Fury Road, where the critics kind of made you be like, don't forget this. This is an important
Mhm.
movie to remember. And it's so emotionally stirring. Guillermo del Toro calling it the most impressive feature debut, I think, in 20 years. Hopefully
Yeah.
that sentiment stays strong. So Pranks and Cats, I agree with you. Hopefully it does stay alive.
I agree. I would like for that to happen. I do have some doubts though. Um, Moving on to, as you mentioned, Best International Feature: All of Us Strangers, Anatomy of a Fall, Poor Things, Totem, and The Zone of Interest. I have seen two of these. I love Poor Things and All of Us Strangers, both. Great movies. I want to see Anatomy of a Fall soon. It's not playing near me, but I am prioritizing it.
Also, I apologize because Totem wasn't like hyperlinked or wasn't in yellow. I
Mhm.
didn't see that. So when I said any movie in
Yeah,
this category could be nominated, unfortunately,
not
I
that
mean,
one.
Totem. Let's see. Maybe you can, get
I
get
have
some
doubts.
attention. We'll see. I'm sure there's some movies in Best Picture that we're gonna hope. I don't know. That's what's interesting. I think a lot of the years that we can look at nominees and be like, why was that nominated? Looking at the crop, I think that uh, it's going to be a nice group, a nice selection of films.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they're in the mood for with this category because they could go in many different ways. And I'm excited to see these movies. You've seen Poor Things at least. And did you see All Those
Yes,
Strangers?
I did see All of Us Strangers, and I think All of Us Strangers, looking at the Gotham Award nominations, was kind of like the big winner here. I think it was the only one to get four nominations. It got International Feature, Actor, Actress, or Supporting, or not
Supporting
they didn't do
performance.
genders. Supporting Performance, Lead Performance, and Screenplay. So they really liked it. I also really liked it. I need to see it again to fully like cement my thoughts on it because the ending I'm still not completely sure about.
Mm-hmm.
But I I'm
Yeah.
those are probably my top two films of the year.
Yeah.
This is hard. Poor Things, All the Strangers, Oppenheimer are probably my top, and Killer. We'll get into Killers. We have a good year of movies as well.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
And
definitively pick one until the end of the year, I guess.
also, is it Janus Films? Janus Films.
Yeah.
Whenever you see them, you're in for a treat. So happy to see them here. And also, I want to just point out, I think Neon, since I, Tonya, which was 6 years ago, they really have, with their Parasite win, they've really, the fact that they've kind of rose at the same time as A24. I don't think they get the same talk as A24, but
Mhm.
and I think maybe that's but they have won Best Picture, so I think Neon has really done a really remarkable job, especially acquiring international films and giving them films like Titan, Anatomy of a Fall. Yeah, I'm very excited to see. I see Anatomy of a Fall on Saturday, so I'm very excited.
Ooh, I don't think it's playing this weekend for me. Hopefully the following weekend it will be though. And going back to an unknown country, Trevor says you can rent it or pirate it, I guess, but I wouldn't suggest that, Trevor. Um, let's see what else. A24 and Neon are basically the only studios allowed to campaign right now.
Yeah.
Right now, yes, and it was also mentioned later how much the SAG strike will continue. I don't, I have no clue. I mean, they're meeting again, which is a positive sign. I would hope that they'll be able to get it done before the end of the year. Right now, that's what I think they'll be able to do. I think everyone's kind of
Yeah.
itching to get back to work.
I mean, just
But
we got to
who knows?
remember that like Margot Robbie and Cillian Murphy in particular, Ryan Gosling too, they have and Robert Downey Jr. You could look at those, the two big ones from both. They haven't been able
Yeah.
to like bask in the success of both of their movies. Like that, to
Mhm.
me, that I think is really, I don't think, let's say worst case scenario, this is probably not going to happen. That like the actor strike went all the way to the Oscars. I don't think that changes things. Like I still would keep the front runners I have, and I still have, especially like for example, Robert Downey Jr. I'm still very strong with him in supporting actor, despite the fact that he hasn't been able to do any press and talk about anything about this movie since it's come
He's
out.
done more than his competitors, to be honest.
Yeah, but I
They haven't
still
gotten
think,
anything.
yeah, but still, I do think that and it's not the stuff that we're going to see. It's the stuff that happens when they go to the parties and they go to the functions that the industry's invited to, the guild screenings. I know of friends who like are looking forward. They're not seeing these movies because they're waiting for the guild screenings with the actors, with the
Mhm.
filmmakers. That and I think the problem is what I see happening is that the longer people wait to see these movies, the more it gets built up in their heads and then the more it doesn't live up to their expectations, the La La Land effect. And that's what I hope
Yeah.
doesn't happen with these movies that are affected by the strike, which is that you expect one thing and it can't live up to that. That's what helped with Barbie and Oppenheimer, is that they were such a surprise. And then people talked about how great the movie was. That's what you want. You want to be a surprise and then a masterpiece, not a masterpiece that you're not surprised by.
This is true. This is true. Yes, the Gotham Awards are very important. They are the most important Oscar precursor. No, as I said, do not take these seriously. But they're a fun first awards show every season. Perfect Days not getting in here. I want to see that a lot. I think you mentioned it later. Trevor's favorite movie of the year. So I'm looking forward to seeing it whenever I can. But yeah, I have the comments. Blah, 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 blah. I think we've both seen the Eras Tour movie.
We have.
Right.
I've seen it.
Yes.
It's on my
great.
wall. If you can see it, there it is.
Oh, right, yeah, right there.
Yes, I've
Right
seen it
there.
twice. I'm going back for a third time.
I've only seen it once. I technically will get it. I probably won't talk about it during the review, but I've heard it twice technically, because during watching Killers of the Flower Moon, I did hear some faint Taylor Swift songs when Brendan Fraser was screaming as a lawyer, and I heard "You Need to Calm Down." In the other
yes.
And, yeah, that timing
for some reason
was amazing.
That and I Knew You Were Trouble When You Walked In would play during a very perfect moment. Yes, that was terrific.
It's a loud movie.
Yeah,
but yeah, I love the Eras Tour movie. I don't really consider it a movie per se. It's a concert film, but it was a great time.
In the same way that I would have said that Free Solo should have gotten a nomination for Best Cinematography that year, despite it being a documentary, it's very different. Because to me, I really think that the editing of the Eras, I just was so impressed with. I think you can award the things that are completely cinematic. Like you can't, directing. It's hard because part of that experience is the stuff that the tour already achieved before they put it on camera. But the editing is unique to the film, and the fact that I felt so exhilarated. I mean, it was one of the most thrilling theatrical experiences, and I think that's part of the editing. The sound mix too. I think there are technical aspects that I would consider it, and honestly would put it up for a nomination at this point. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I don't think I would, but I think the money is the reward. That's Taylor's fine.
The same way that Kubo and the Two Strings gets visual effects or production design. I forget which one it was, but
I believe it got visual effects.
Yeah. So that's not technically the same thing as the other ones, but it's unique and it's still in the realm. You're still, if I'm an editor, I'm going about editing that thing the same way I would a short film. I have the coverage, I have to put it all together in a concise thing, and it was such an achievement. This is where the special achievement Oscars, with Snow White or Star Wars, come in handy. And I think I would say the Eras Tour is worthy of that. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
I also loved it.
And I wasn't a big Swiftie going in.
Oh, really?
I respected her and I liked her, but I didn't listen to her music at all. I would not have called myself even a fan. I came out buying tickets for the next day.
You weren't singing along? You didn't know the lyrics by heart?
I knew more of the songs than I realized, but also my a show that I directed, the choreographer is a big Taylor Swift fan, so whenever we warmed up, we were putting on Taylor Swift. So that's how I knew a lot of it. But you go outside, the lyrics to "You Belong With Me" and Shake It Off. All right, back to the Gothams.
Yeah. Let's go back to the Gotham Awards, which Taylor Swift was not nominated for here. Not really in their wheelhouse. But yeah, I think winner here, they loved All of Us Strangers, but once again, it's separate juries for separate categories, so I have no clue. Maybe Poor. I don't think they'll give it to Poor Things. I think they want it. That's still not quite in their independent sphere. I'd say maybe All of Us Strangers or Zone of Interest, maybe. I have no clue though. I don't know. Documentary feature. We've got 20 Days in Mariupol, Against the Tide, Apollonia, Four Daughters, and Our Body. This is a category I have no clue about still. I think 20 Days in Mariupol will be nominated. There was another one that I think Four Daughters has a good shot, but I haven't been paying as much attention to this. I usually save this for much later into the award season to catch up on. But this is a good first hint at some of the contenders. I think 20 Days in Mariupol is our front runner so far, but as we see with documentary, that's a crazy category. So who knows?
Who knows? We
have
never
you seen
do.
Any of these? Any thoughts?
I have not, no, but I look forward to. This is what some of the good that award season does. It brings these films that don't get these big splashy debuts and gives the spotlight to them. So I look forward to seeing. I hope to see these, and I hope to see the Oscar 5.
Yeah, I agree. Breakthrough director presented by Cadillac.
It's giving Verizon Wireless presents the Indominus Rex, and I don't know how I feel about that.
Gotham Awards. They need to make their money somehow, you know? I'm
guess.
okay with it. Raven Jackson, All Dirt Roads, Taste of Salt, Georgia Oakley, Blue Jean, Michelle Garza Cervera, Husera, Celine Song, Past Lives, and A.V. Rockwell, 1001. I've seen 3 of these. I think my favorite would be Celine Song for Past Lives. I wasn't a huge fan of All Dirt Roads, Taste of Salt in terms of like, there's not really much of a story. There's really like no plot at all, to be honest. It's really just vibes and beautiful images, but the direction is very well done. Even if the film I wasn't enraptured by, but I think
I'd love
Raven.
I'd love a film class that is just vibes and good images. Like that's the name of the class.
Vibes,
and it
good
teaches
cinematography. This would be in said class. Yeah, I did enjoy it. I don't know when it actually comes out. I know it also played at NIF. I saw it at Sundance. But yeah, it was very good. I look forward to what Raven Jackson does next. Hopefully there's a little more plot, but yeah, very good work.
Is NIF New York Film Festival?
NIF is New York Film Festival, yeah. NIF. It's too long to just say New York Film Festival. NIF.
I guess.
Yeah. Any thoughts here? I assume probably only seen Pat. Have you seen 1001 yet?
I wanted to. It was like a blip in theaters. So I again, I'm looking forward to it. It's definitely one on my list. But yeah, I'm always interested to see like, do they spread the love? You know, how strong is the one movie? As you said, like All of Us Strangers, like it got a lot of nominations. Does that mean that, you know, you can never tell until every year? I think it changes.
Yeah, because I think it is a good sign though, because each category is here at least decided by different groups of people. So All of Us Strangers getting into multiple categories is a good sign for the love being. I don't even know how they decide their winners either, but good sign either way.
Listen, after Elvis didn't win a single Oscar last year, I'm still kind of like that vexed me a little bit.
That was insane.
Yeah.
I didn't even like Elvis, but that's insane. Yeah.
I'm very happy about this next category because there's a certain movie in there that I cannot wait to see.
Yes. Wait, before we get into that, there were a few comments on documentary I would like to address. 4 Daughters and 20 Days are the only. Yeah, from what I have seen, those are the only ones I would probably consider, but there's always a surprise usually in that category. Let's see. 20 Days in Mariupol is getting snubbed. I mean, if it's the front runner in documentary, that probably will have it. Beyond Utopia, that's the other one I was hearing about. I believe it's about a family that escaped North Korea or something. I may be remembering that wrong. But yeah, I've been hearing great things about that as well. And
sounds like a fun watch.
Yeah. Most of the documentaries, let's be honest, are not fun watches. Usually very sad.
But they're still brilliant. They're still great.
They are. And vibes are better than plot. Yeah, and Trevor did really love.
Might agree. That's an interesting. It's a very.
I lean a little more. I like vibes a lot, but I need some plot. And not All of the Strangers. All Dirt Roads, Taste of Salt. There was not really a plot that I could find, but beautiful images. That's like that saying, beautiful gowns, stunning gowns.
Which is funny because I think it could it works in the other way too, where Ari Aster's films have like the worst vibes. Like they feel like you want to leave the room because they're so disgusting, and that's why I love those movies. So like, there's something about the vibes. The vibes can make or break your movie. The vibes is what gets you to want to rewatch it too. Like Devil Wears Prada has great vibes. That's why you put it on at 1 o'clock in the morning when you can't go to sleep.
Those movies all have a lot of plot though. I think Trevor means vibes, like no plot vibes maybe.
Yeah.
But who knows? Best Screenplay. We've got All of Us Strangers, Anatomy of a Fall, May December, RMN, and The Zone of Interest. Interesting that Zone of Interest got nominated here. From what I've heard about the movie, it's really not very screenplay focused at all. It's kind of a vibes movie, as we were talking
well, listen, about. I don't think it got in at the Gothams, but like Roma got a screenplay nomination. That's definitely, I think there's the feeling that screenplay means talky. It means dialogue driven, which is not always the case. And I think people are really respecting Zone of Interest. It's definitely very bold in where it goes with its subject material, and I think they're seeing that. And also, a lot of times, like especially when the actors don't have a lot to say, a lot of that has to be on the page. And so that's what I think. It definitely at indie awards, they're going to recognize that.
Yeah, it is interesting. No Poor Things here. They didn't really go for Poor Things much at all outside of, I guess they want to recognize it in international feature. But more surprising, no Past Lives here. I really would have thought Past Lives would have gotten a screenplay nomination, but
that's interesting too, because I feel like if you were going to lean in one direction, I feel like you love the script more than the script. It's a great written movie for like it's writer oriented. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like
totally.
Like it's definitely like a writer director than a director writer. Like it's the it's the Scorsese thing that he called Tarantino like, but he's a writer, so it's different. It's like
he's built different.
Yeah, he's built different because when you write stuff first, like when the idea is on the page rather than a visual in your mind, it's a different process. And I would have bet that Past Lives is being respected for the page, but it's just, it's interesting to keep in mind.
Yeah, I love seeing All the Strangers and May December here. Both have great scripts. I think I liked All the Strangers more, but I think I like May December's script more. But I don't know if either of them will. I don't know what will win. We don't really need to pop. Who knows? Moving on to the acting categories, we've got Anjanou Ellis-Taylor for Origin, Lily Gladstone for The Unknown Country, Greta Lee for Past Lives, Franz Rogowski for Passages. Okay.
Good luck.
Babadida or
Our apologies.
I'm gonna do this. I don't want to just say I can't pronounce your name. I feel like I need to at least attempt. Babatida Sadjo for Our Father the Devil, Andrew Scott for All of Us Strangers, Kaylee Spaney for Priscilla, Tiana Taylor for 1001, Michelle Williams for Showing Up, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. Good lineup here. What do you think of this lineup?
The tea leaves here are very interesting. As I mentioned, the Lily Gladstone effect of what's happening there. Different film, but supporting her. Greta Lee getting in, very good. She needs to be getting in at a lot of these indie places in order to mount a campaign to get to the Oscars. Not impossible, but I do worry. Aquafina won the Golden Globe and then missed out on the Oscar, and so the nomination.
This is much more competitive than that year too.
I'm worried about just because I think they're both A24 summer releases with a Asian culture perspective and that in the forefront. So we'll see, but happy to see her here, of course. Beautiful work. Kaylee Spaney, is that how you say her name?
Oh, have you seen it?
No, I'm not saying that because of the performance. I just think she's a very interesting player here because she keeps popping up at these places. Like I think, where did she win? Did she win at Venice?
She won the Volpe Cup at Venice, which is like very good consistency.
So it's get Oscar. She's one to keep an eye on, especially because I think there are, and we'll talk about Killers of the Flower Moon.
There's 4 pretty safe actresses in.
There are 4, and I feel like that 5th one is really wide open. Very similar to 2019, where we had Johansson, Zellweger, Theron, and Ronan, and then it was no man. Like everybody was going for that 5th spot, and she might get it because I do think the only thing I think that worries me is just because she is unknown for the most part. Like I think when you see these type of performances get in there, it's when Natalie Portman plays Jackie Kennedy or when Kristen Stewart plays Diana Spencer. It also helps when you have Pablo Larraín behind you. But Sofia Coppola, she was one of the few people to take away. Well, she didn't take away an Oscar. They were in different categories, but she was one of the few people to win an Oscar the night that Lord of the Rings went and just ambushed the competition. So I do think she's respected, but I also don't think this is an Academy picture. The Academy picture that they want of the story is Elvis. No. But I think she's definitely one to keep an eye out. She's
in contention.
She's playing the tortoise in the hare game. She's the tortoise going a little bit at a time.
Yeah. She also able to campaign, which most of these actresses are not. So that's also very helpful.
And she's a discovery. She's a discovery like Vanessa Kirby too, when she got nominated for Pieces of a Woman, though Vanessa Kirby was on The Crown, and also it was the anomalous year of the pandemic. But
Kaylee Spaney was in Mayor of Easttown, but I don't think that was nearly as big of a role. But
was she the only member of that cast not to win a frickin' Emmy?
She died
Oh
in the
my
first
God.
episode. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
You need spoiler alert. Any HBO show,
That
you are gonna
episode,
spoil.
that show, that's like the premise of the show, first off. And that's like 3 years old. Everyone
You're
watched American
fine.
Stone.
You're fine.
Great show. Great show. If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but you should.
What do we think of Jeffrey Wright?
It's interesting. I don't know what to do with that similar in actor. Although I don't think there's 4 locks. I think there's 3 locks in actor, and there's 2 spots that are up between like 4 different people.
Who's your third? I assume we agree on Murphy and Cooper.
And I think DiCaprio is pretty safe.
So you don't think Giamatti is?
I think he is
possible. Is he your number 4?
He's probably my number 4 because his film is going to get into Best Picture, unlike Domingo and Rustin.
And it's been so long with him. Like I feel like people are like, "Oh, Paul Giamatti."
He missed for like Sideways and stuff. I could still see it's not a super showy performance from what I've heard too. So I think he could still miss.
Mm-hmm.
But
he is the star of The Holdovers.
He is.
In the same way, not that they're similar movies, but like, Clooney being the star of The Descendants. If The Descendants does well, it's like, how can you not? I don't see a Robert De Niro Irishman situation happening with Paul Giamatti. That seems like, again, I'm not comparing the movies with the performances. It seems like Viggo Mortensen and Green Book, where they love the movie so much and they like Paul Giamatti that they're going to give him the nomination. And I do think then it's down to, I feel like there's no chatter on Rustin. And I think that is, for a movie at that scale, especially, the bigger movies can't campaign, but where is Rustin?
Campaign. He needs to campaign to get in.
I think he doesn't know where he should campaign. I think he's waiting to see if The Color Purple really hits big.
He will not be. That role in Color Purple, he will not be nominated for that, in my opinion. I think his
J.K. Simmons in Being the Ricardos would like a word, because if you're well liked,
J.K. Simmons. Well, yeah, but his character, first off, in that film was much more like.
That's
Coleman Domingo's character is despicable. I don't think they're going to.
Hey, we like winking devils and supporting actors sometimes.
He's not winking.
I'm just saying,
he's just the devil.
It's just weird. It's weird how, like, for somebody who I think could have been talked about as a leading contender, there's just no buzz on it compared to Jeffrey Wright, who at least I think has that overdue actor, Colin Farrell type of vibe to him. Well respected, well regarded. The movie is kind of catching people by surprise. I think I currently have Jeffrey Wright in my number 5. I see that happening. I think he's an actor everybody loves, and they have loved. He was in freaking Hunger Games. Like, they just love him.
Yeah, I could definitely see him getting in there. I don't think I'd have him in my 5 right now, but it's very possible.
Is he your number 6?
He's my number 6. Yes.
Okay. So we have the same top 6. We just flip the order of 5 and 6.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I think his best shot at getting nominated is Sing Sing next year, than either Color Purple or Rusty.
Yeah. I don't have him in for The Color Purple. I want to just say that. I just think that it just seems so weird that we're waiting. It's similar to how it felt with like Adam Driver, where like he had The Report and Marriage Story, but then once Marriage Story came out, like, okay, that was the one, and he chose. A lot of times you choose. Like, I think Julianne Moore had Still Alice the same year as Maps to the Stars, and it's like, all right, well, Still Alice is going to be the one to do it, so lean Still Alice. That's just what I get, but it's weird that if what you're saying is true, like it's a performance or a character that is so not going to get in, especially with how competitive supporting actor is, then lean all in on Rustin. Just come on.
Yeah.
We're running out of time here.
I do want to say, I think all 3 of those mentioned there are almost leaning co-lead roles in those films, whereas Coleman Domingo's character is not in, like, he's not a co-lead at all.
With that note that our commenter just said, they are the movie. Like, what you remember from the movie is their performance, and they embody the movie. Heath Ledger embodies The Dark Knight. If I tell you No Country for Old Men, the first thing you're going to think of is Anton Chigurh. With The Color Purple, he doesn't represent the movie. It's not like you're going to think of the soul-moving ballad that this character sings. So you have a point there. Again, I don't think he's going to get nominated for The Color Purple. It just seems very odd that it seems as if he's waiting for The Color Purple to come out to be like, oh, and by the way, I have this movie called Rustin up for Best Actor. Consider it, please. It's like, no, do the groundwork now, and then Color Purple comes in and supports that.
A few other shout outs in lead. Andrew Scott is so good in All of Us Strangers. He might be my favorite lead actor performance of the year, which is a lot, considering Cillian Murphy is incredible in Oppenheimer. But he it's a good year for ocular performances because Cillian Murphy has a very ocular performance, and Andrew Scott has also a very ocular performance in this film. He's crying a lot, does a lot with his face. And Tiana Taylor is amazing in 1001. I wish that could. I doubt it gains much traction outside of like more critic awards places, but I wish that could. But Best Actress is just crazy crowded. But yeah, any other thoughts on these lead nominees? Or shall we move
I'm interested to see what happens with Origin, if that can start to get some momentum. We'll see. Yeah, I'm just, that's the only one that I think caught my eye. Though it's coming from Neon, and they definitely have Anatomy of a Fall. They have other priorities.
They do.
So far, that could always change.
That is true.
All right, can we talk about a nomination here that made me very, very happy?
Yes, let me say them first. Really,
go.
Juliette Binoche, The Taste of Things; Penelope Cruz, Ferrari; Jamie Foxx, They Clone Tyrone. If that's what the one you're going to talk about, that was nice. Claire Foy, also an incredible nomination for All of Us Strangers. Amazing in that movie.
Can she get an Oscar nomination, please, by now? For the love of God, Claire Foy.
If that film is a huge contender, I think she goes with it. But if not, then I don't think so. But Ryan Gosling for Barbie, Glenn Howerton for Blackberry, another great nomination. Sandra Hüller gets in for Zone of Interest here instead of lead for Anatomy of a Fall, which is interesting. Rachel McAdams, Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret, also incredible. Charles Melton, May December, also incredible. Divine Joy Randolph, The Holdovers. I haven't seen it, I'm sure incredible.
I think Sandra Hüller gets in for supporting if they like Zone of Interest as well. If Anatomy of the Fall is the only one to like burst the Oscar bubble, then Anatomy of the Fall, because she has a better chance in supporting because Best Actress is stacked. That's kind of my philosophy. I just worry about Zone of Interest being an Academy picture, and therefore she'll have to just.
I don't think Zone of Interest is going to get any acting nominations. To be honest, it doesn't seem like that kind of movie.
I worry.
I'm also unsure about her. I think it might get. I think its package would be director, picture, cinematography, if I were to guess.
Maybe.
But I'm also worried about Hüller. I've been worried about her the whole season, but I have put her back in. I haven't had her in like the whole season. At number 5 in my category, but for Best
I have to check.
But
I'll look up my 5 before the end of the show. All right, can we talk about what I'm very happy to see?
Yes, which one was?
Because it's the type of performance that doesn't get this sort of attention, but is so necessary to the movie working. And also, she's so wonderful. She's so good in everything she does. I was so happy to see Rachel McAdams in Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret. There are a couple scenes there. If you haven't seen the movie, it's charming. It's from Kelly Freeman Craig. She did The Edge of 17 with Haley Steinfeld. But what I love about it is that she is struggling. It's as much a coming-of-age movie for her as it is for Abby Ryder-Fortson, who plays the lead. It's the type of story I love, and she just knocked it out of the park. I love this performance. And she's going up against the more flamboyant, the bigger persona of Kathy Bates in the movie, which I think, it's the Judi Dench versus Katrina Balfe situation of like Kathy Bates seems like the more obvious performance that somebody would nominate. But Rachel McAdams, it's the tougher role. It's a beautiful, heartbreaking performance. I'm so happy she's here. In my mind, she would be definitely more serious consideration. I don't know. This movie really, I thought this movie was tremendous. And I'm glad. This is the type of performance that Gotham should be honoring. I'm very happy.
I agree. I would guess, I still have some movies left to see. Biggest one, I think, Color Purple for supporting actress category. I think Rachel McAdams will be in my top 5 at the end of the year. She is just
really
so good. I mean, Claire Foy.
I'm debating
so far.
I'm debating Penelope Cruz because all I've heard about Ferrari is that they really think she sticks
I just
out
think
of the
they're
park.
going to ignore that movie, though.
We'll see. I mean, it's Michael Mann. I think Michael Mann and Ridley Scott. We have to just wait and see what the movie is, how it performs.
Michael Mann isn't like an Oscar guy, though. He's only got
but he has respect. He definitely has a pedigree. And I think that Penelope Cruz certainly has respect and a pedigree. So I'm debating. I think there's room. I don't know if Penelope Cruz and Rachel McAdams gets in.
I don't think Rachel McAdams has a shot, sadly.
So what are you saying you're putting her in for? Like, your personal top 5?
My personal 5 at the end.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I get you. Then yes, I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. But also there's my personal pick for an indie movie that I think should have been here is Patti LuPone and Beau is Afraid. I thought that was such a good performance.
That was very good.
She's in my top 5, so that's the one that I think is missing here. But also, I know a lot of people. I haven't seen Blackberry. I know a lot of people are very happy for Glenn Howerton. I think that's really cool that he's there.
Oh yeah, He's really, really good in that movie.
And I think Jamie Foxx, I mean, listen, I love Jamie Foxx, and I think this
Yeah.
is not the type of movie that gets this sort of attention. Great to see him here. Would you like to do your Charles Melton soapbox?
Oh,
Because I'm
yes.
starting to agree with you.
Charles
I think it's
Melton
happening.
is one of my favorite performances of the year so far. He steals the entire film away from Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman, two Oscar-winning incredible actresses. I think he has the most emotional heft and weight in the movie. It's really centered around him and his trauma. He has the most emotional resonance and what would you call it? Resolution at the end of the movie. He does so much. I can't imagine anyone in that category giving a better performance than him. And I think he will get nominated at the Oscars. I'm pretty confident about that because it's just, I think he's going to hit every precursor. I think Globes are going to love that movie, to be honest. I think it's going to do very well there. BAFTAs, I think, will definitely go for that kind of performance. SAG, I think it's possible. There's less spots there, but they lean Netflix at SAG. SAG loves Netflix movies, as we saw with Adam Sandler last year. What's her name? Ana de Armas.
But also,
So,
I think that helps. SAG also is very celebrity driven, so that's the one thing hurting him there.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a possibility for May, December to have 3 acting nominations?
I think it's very possible. Yeah, I think he's the
I'm
best.
leaning in that direction. I think the strongest person is Julianne Moore for supporting.
I don't think so.
No? Have you seen it? You've seen it, so like.
Oh yeah, I have seen it.
Yeah.
She would be very deserving. I just think when you come away from that film, she's probably, and they're all incredible. She's, I think, going to be a lot of people's like ranked 3rd out of the 3 at least. She's very showy though,
but that's different. I feel that it's more that supporting actress is the least competitive of the acting categories, and so you look at Julianne Moore like, well, how can we not nominate Julianne Moore? I think Natalie Portman to me is the toughest one just because of how competitive it is, but also what I'm hearing is it might be the one you
it's
talk
showy.
about the most.
She has a monologue in the last few minutes of the film that's like 5 minutes straight to the camera. She goes through all the emotions. It's
giving me Persona vibes.
Showy. Yeah, it's such a good movie.
It might be the most, like, it might bring us back to like, oh, Black Swan, Natalie Portman, where have you been? You know,
yeah.
So
it's her best performance since Jackie, at least. Is what I'd say. I probably like it a little more than Jackie, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Natalie Portman's one of those people that if she's in a movie, it's an instant 8 out of 10, for sure. She's like Annihilation, Black Swan,
not Thor: Love and Thunder, but yeah.
Well, listen, the prequels and Thor: Love and Thunder, I still think that she's. I'm happy to see her here. I'm happy to see her there. She makes it a better experience.
She does.
Yeah, but still.
But yeah, I think May December is also being underrated in terms of its best picture chances. Is all I'll say.
I have it in. I
also have it in. Oh, you're right. Yeah. Not many people do, but I have it in. I think number 9 right now.
I think that it's a movie that people will be talking about. I think that we've talked about it. Todd Haynes in A Year of 10, Carol would have gotten in. I think that it's a really interesting perspective. It's unique. It catches people off guard. And the fact that people are responding to it despite some of the more campy elements, I think is great. The thing is that the trailer played like a drama. And that's what's important. You know, it's not leaning into the camp, it seems. It's leaning into its
It's not nearly as campy as everyone says it is either. It has campy moments, but it's still overall very clearly a drama.
I think what's great about this is that, and Netflix might be the best home for this, to be perfectly honest, even though I would prefer if it did a Killers of the Flower Moon type of rollout, because there's the people who will watch this as like an entertainment and will get something out of it from that. But then the people who, like us, look at it as like this very important drama and will also get something out of it. And I think Netflix is a great opportunity where both audiences can be serviced. And it has star power. You know, I think a screenplay nomination is pretty, for sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't have directing, but I see this as the marriage story of this year. I see it as this is the marriage story. This is the secondary Netflix picture, more screenplay actors, the writers and the actors are going to, support this one. And it's the one that you're going to enjoy watching more than some of these other ones that are very heavy.
Yes, it has some, obviously, if you know the premise of the film, some deeply uncomfortable stuff in it, but it's not like bleak and dark and depressing. Like
this is the promising young woman of this year, too, I think.
Maybe.
Because that was also depressing and dark, but in a tantalizing way, in a way that you can't look away. Which is interesting when you have Saltburn in the mix, because I think Emerald Fennell is hoping
it's such a wild card.
You can do it. It is such a wild card. I have it. It's either in a big way, or it's missing every single category. We have to wait and see.
Right now, I'd say missing.
Box office is going to decide that one, I think, more than anything.
Possibly, yeah. Anything else here? Nothing. I think I mentioned everything that I've seen. That I really am looking forward to seeing Divine Joy Randolph.
Yeah.
The holdovers.
All right. So Ryan Gosling, do you think he should be here?
Oh, I'm fine with it. I personally, every time I've seen and thought about Barbie since I first saw it, it's gone down in terms of my opinion on it.
Oh, really?
And I've seen similar performances to his, like Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things, that I honestly think do that shtick better. I'm fine with him being nominated. I don't know if by the end of the year he will be in my top 5 personally, my personal top 5 for supporting actor, but I'm fine with it. I mean, it's one of the few like blockbuster things that were recognized here. So I'm fine with him getting in.
I think, again, in principle, we want the Gothams to look for those films that the Oscars aren't going to look at. But at the same time, I think we have to acknowledge that Ryan Gosling in Barbie is very similar to Melissa McCarthy in Bridesmaids. This is an unconventional performance to be considered for awards. I think we're already thinking like, oh, he's a frontrunner for Best Supporting Actor for the Oscars. But that's a little weird to think. You know, it's because he's great in the movie, but it's weird that Ryan Gosling as Ken the doll is going to be a frontrunner. So in a way,
I don't think he will be.
Well, he's definitely getting nominated, and I think
so.
And
I don't think he'll win.
Even though in this room we don't think he's win competitive, I know a
Lots
lot of people who think he is. So my point being is that I think that we have to recognize that that is still very unique, and so the Gotham's giving him this little, bit of credibility, I think is important as far as for the people who don't like Barbie saying, no, this is a great performance and it's worthy of your attention. So you got to do it very careful. I think Gosling and Barbie is one of the rare people that it makes sense for. It was an achievement for a performance, but also it helps that the rest of the category kind of, when you have Rachel McAdams, Charles Melton, Divine Joy Randolph, Sandra Hüller, Glenn Howard, when you have all these people in there, you're okay. If he was in there with Robert Downey Jr. and Robert De Niro, then we have a different conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is pretty much it for the Gothams. But before we drop off, who do you think into Killers of the Flower Moon? Who do you think would win this? This is like a weird group of people.
Who honestly, I think would win?
Maybe Charles Melton, right here in this lineup of people.
It's so tough with.
I don't think Gosling would win.
It's tough because I also think that we're entering an interesting period when we have the combined awards as far as like, are they looking to try and balance them out between feature performance and supporting performance? It's something to keep in mind because I do think the gender politics of it all will, weigh on people with the decision. It's very tough. I think Ryan Gosling won't win.
I would say Charles Melton right now. Maybe that's just my personal bias.
But also, they love both movies she was in. Maybe Sandra Hüller comes out and wins supporting performance. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah. But I think Charles Melton is good. And Divine Joy Randolph, I think, she could be, we've seen her rise since the first time I saw her was Dolomite Is My Name, and she was exceptional. That was a worthy performance. And she could. But also, I don't know if the holdovers, if this is the best place for that film to get its support.
Giamatti did miss here, and she made it in. So I do think she is stronger than him in terms of getting a nomination overall.
That I agree with.
But yeah, Trevor has seen Saltburn. He thinks it's amazing, but doesn't get a single nomination. I would agree.
Not even Craft, Trevor? Not even Craft?
I mean, probably just cinematography, and I think it would be a little too crowded.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think you are going to
enjoy.
Love May December. I loved it. One of my favorites of the year. That's really it for the Gotham Awards. We can stop sharing the screen and move on to the big topic here, which is Killers of the Flower Moon. Let's start talking about the film itself before we get into all the awards chances stuff. But what are your thoughts on Killers? I don't know what you think about this movie at all, so this will be a surprise to me.
I know.
Your thoughts on Killers of the Flower Moon?
I held it because I knew we were going to have a good show if I did.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple of things I need to get out front, because I do think they affect my perspective on the movie. First off, I love everybody involved. I love Scorsese. I love what he represents. I love his passion for world cinema and bringing that into movies like this. I just cannot respect him more as a filmmaker. And also, I've read the book, and the book, it's creative nonfiction. It's I definitely, if you love the movie, I definitely think check out the book, because the book is it's written with like the integrity of like a journalist, like a spotlight type of thing, but it's written with the prose of a thriller. It's really, it's the closest thing I can do to, as far as a film comparison, as far as what it feels like, is like an animated documentary. So it's a really interesting read, and I loved the book. And so at first, what I had issue with is a lot of the execution and the adaptation of the story that I read on the page to the film. Just to give you a little bit of context, the first scene that's really depicted in the book happens 45 minutes into the movie, which is when the sister comes in drunk. And then Jesse Plemons' character comes in at around 100 pages in the 300-page book, and that's 2 hours into the movie. So as you can imagine, as somebody, and that's the reason that is because, and this is what we'll get into as far as the point of view, the first half of the book is a mystery, and you don't know what's going on, and then you find out what's happening with, I feel bad. Are we going to talk about this movie?
We can, like, I think everyone knows who, like, that based on the trailers.
I'll be careful. Okay.
De Niro. But maybe not like explicit, like especially at the ending spoilers.
Gotcha. Okay. So like you find out midway through
it's based on
that's
history.
What they've
Everyone
been doing.
Knows.
Yeah. But you find out halfway through that that's what's happening, and then you go back and you realize their plan, which that's not how the movie presents itself. It presents itself from the beginning. This is their plan. You know, I do like that money, sir. Like that's the plan. Like it's very clear. And I think the problem with that is twofold. A, for me, it takes a lot of the drama and intrigue out of this story because there is no surprise, there's no revelation, and you can basically chart the movie out to where it's going to be at this point, even if you don't know the story. And two, and you've seen some people say this, I do think the moment it hit me where I realized this was a problem was that there's a certain tragic moment that happens in the wake of the film, and it happens to both Lily Gladstone and Leonardo DiCaprio. And we spend more time with DiCaprio crying on the floor than we do with Lily Gladstone. And to me, that's when I knew we had a problem here, because this movie is trying to tell a story. And granted, I understand the certain takes that have been told to justify why DiCaprio and De Niro are the point of view. But frankly, I don't think they worked. I don't think I connected to this. I didn't really care for any of these people, and I didn't care for their characters. I think Scorsese wants DiCaprio to go on this Michael Corleone type arc, and he wants him to be this person who had ideals and then falls and succumbs to darkness and depression. And by the end of Godfather Part 2, Michael is sitting there with killing, his brother, and he's like, oh my God, what have I done? It's this, that's what I think he wanted for Ernest Burkhart. I don't think he achieves that because I never really connected with him. And they were both so duplicitous from the get-go that it was kind of hard to buy into the romance. It reminded me a little bit of West Side Story, where Rachel Zegler was doing all the work because Ansel Elgort was doing nothing as far as making me buy into this relationship and this romance. And that's partly due to the architecture of the structure of the story. And there were so many emotional beats that I felt weren't there or weren't effective. And it made it very hard for me to connect with the story, setting aside the fact that then you have the moral issue of this is a story about the white man taking away this culture and eroding this way of life for these Native Americans people. And Scorsese essentially does that with the point of view. It felt very similar to Pocahontas, Disney's Pocahontas, where we're so afraid of offending people that we're not going to give them any characteristics or any personality. And all that Lily Gladstone does is she reacts, and she has beautiful eyes, and she reacts with every fiber of her body. But I was missing that action. To me, and I'll let you say your piece because I know you're very different minded on this. To me, I feel this story should work very similarly to Titanic. That you spend the first half establishing the high class, the wealth, how incredible this scenario and this setting is, only for it to be taken away. And the reveal is that, oh my God, my husband that I loved is actually against me and trying to take this away from me. To me, that's not only the story it should have been, but a more interesting story, a story that Scorsese hasn't told yet, because I do feel like he's told this story. He told it with The Irishman.
Yeah.
And when you put The
Irishman,
Irishman,
is the story that he tells.
it's the story he tells, and I get it, variations on a theme, but also there's only so long I can defend certain choices he makes and certain omissions he does to his story. Like, I defended the Anna Paquin thing and that she's not in the movie, and that's the point, because she's not in Robert De Niro's life. But then to see it again with Lily Gladstone, and like we're missing huge chunks of her story because we're not telling it. There's only so many times that I can see the same thing. And that was also my issue. Like, I'm so clearly like, that's the story. You have Lily Gladstone who's giving you fantastic work. Go down that path, and you don't. To me, it was, it was unremarkable, which, given the story and the filmmakers, that was a big sin for me. So that's my take on Killers of the Flower Moon.
Completely understand all of those takes, and I agree with most of them. Honestly, I do wish it was from Lily Gladstone's character's perspective, but I do think Scorsese, I think he knows that's probably not his story to tell. I think he's trying to tell it from the perspective he knows best. And I do think, no spoilers, but I think he addresses it pretty directly, all of the issues that you had, that there's an importance of keeping these stories told. And I think a director on this caliber, I think him even choosing to shine a light on this story is important. I think it's a little, the ending, I think, is a little bit ironic, like an ironic affirmation.
Are you talking about
the ending? Yeah, the ending thing that everyone's talking about. Yeah, it's a little ironic, I think, but I think it's about the importance of keeping these stories told, and I think he's hoping that it's from other perspectives in the future, but I think he himself is telling it from the perspective that he knows how to.
Here's my rebuttal to that idea, is just that I think there's a difference between that philosophy with this film and Oppenheimer not showing the Japanese. Because to me, totally. Lily Gladstone is here. She's in the room. And at points, there are scenes where she is by herself. So at that point, Scorsese is telling that story. And the fact that he doesn't give it the same attention is the problem. I'm fine with, this is not my story to tell. But when you have committed to telling the story, then you have to tell the story. And I think Nolan just said, I am not telling the Japanese perspective. That's not my story. I'm not interested in that for this story. And I think that worked because he never does. There's never a moment we don't see it. Here, I mean, there's so many scenes that it is Lily Gladstone and we are seeing her story. And it's just, then it's like 25 minutes and you're like, where's Lily Gladstone? I thought this story, especially because now we know they're pushing her for Best Actress, where it's like, Robert De Niro has probably more screen time than she does. I mean, honestly, I mean, like, and I think partly why they're pushing her for Best Actress is because of the impact.
I think it was her decision.
You feel her so much, and I respect that. But honestly, like, to me, that if you put her in supporting actress, I don't think anybody would have thought twice. It would have made perfect sense. It would have been Regina King, and if Bill Street could talk, like, that would have been that type of performance.
Yeah. She would easily win in supporting. I agree with everything you're saying, and those are my issues with the movie. I do wish it was from a different perspective. I do still think that the story, from the perspective he chose to tell the story from, it was very effective. I wish it was told from a different perspective, from the perspective that he chose. I still thought it was it's very gripping. It's very gut wrenching. It's very bleak and sad. It's about like sin, greed, how far people go, and there's no turning back.
And I think if it was about Gladstone, you would have combated that, because there would have been the hope, the lightness of, oh my God, look at our lives. To me, like, the reason this story was fascinating and worthy of telling was because of what happened, like the Native American side. It was the fact that they were the most, like, the richest people in the country. Like, that was what was fascinating about the story. We didn't Scorsese was not interested in this story because of Ernest Burkhart. He was interested because of Molly Burkhart, and that's where I find the
I do think I found Ernest interesting, though. I think he tried to make him a very conflicted character, which I think, I'm not sure. I mean, there was very good comments by, I forget what his role in the film was, but Christopher Cote mentioned his feelings on the film and the perspective, and I think everyone should watch that. It's pretty much sums up all of those thoughts very well, I believe. And I think everyone should watch that. And I agree with everything he's saying. I think it's I don't think there is really true love there, but I think the film kind of wants you to think that there is.
It
But I
would
think
there would be if it was from Molly's perspective, because I do think she loved him. He never did
she loved
fully.
him. Yes,
And
I
I
think
think
he
that's also
thought
the
he did,
problem,
but
and it's the problem of believing in that romance. Because if you're believing, if Ernest is your point of view, you're never believing in their romance, and that's a major part of this story. You have to believe in their romance. You have to
I do
believe
think
in their union.
it could have been interesting if it was from Molly's perspective. If it's kind of a depiction of marriage and kind of the nightmare of you don't really know how much this person truly cares for you. I think Molly, the character, the way Lily Gladstone portrays her, is very cautious in terms of who she lets in her life, and I think it was a big deal for her to let him into her life, and I think would have been even more heartbreaking from her perspective. But I really don't, even though I think it is important with this film, I don't often like talking about movies from what they could have been. I do like discussing what they are.
I
But I
agree,
think it
and
is. Yeah, go ahead.
no, because I agree, and I was about to make that point that I
Mhm.
understand that you're going to be like, stop talking about the movie you wanted. I think it's more that I'm talking about these things just because I feel that there are glaring problems and holes with it, and the holes
Yeah.
could have been fixed by these things, and that's why
Mhm.
I'm more interested in why Scorsese didn't want to make this. Because part of film is engaging with stuff you don't know. We don't make people don't make movies about like no, Christopher Nolan didn't know everything about Oppenheimer before he said, I want to make this. It's that he was so interested that he wanted to share it. So I don't think that we should only make movies that we know. Like I just made a short film and I made it about a young girl. I am not a young girl. I don't know what that specific thing is like, but I gave it to people who were, and they read it and they told me that this would work and stuff. And I'm interested in that. And I think that's what film is. He wanted to make this movie because he was interested in the Native American plight. And like, that's what it's about. I don't think we should only make movies about stuff that we feel like society deems like that's your story. Because also, who are we to say that's your story or not? Here's a story.
Mhm.
I think that he clearly did the work to tell it, and then he wasn't calibrated, I think, in the right way. That's how I feel, and that's why I brought up the what should have happened.
Yeah, yeah. But the movie that it is, I still enjoyed. I don't think it's like people are saying it's like the best of the year. I don't think it is that. It is one of the better films of the year, I'd say. I think. How do I want to talk about it? I think it's very
evading spoilers.
yeah, especially evading spoilers. Even though it's based on history, I didn't know most of the stuff going into this. I think it is not much better. I don't know, but a good. You've read the book, so you knew what was going to happen, right?
Okay. Yeah, but again, also it's so differently structured that there was an element of like, oh my God, what's happening? Where's Jesse Plemons? We're 2 hours in.
He was in the movie more than I thought he would be, to be honest. From the reviews, I thought it was going to be a very small role, but he was.
Can we talk about the person who did have a small role, which is Brendan Fraser?
Yeah,
which
I mean,
I
didn't expect that to be a huge conversation. It was fine. Honestly, it was better than his performance in Whale, which he won an Oscar for. Let's be serious about that. Is it
as good as The Mummy? That's the scale. Is it as good as The Mummy?
The Mummy is better than both of those, I'm afraid. So is George in the Jungle. But he was. I think if Scorsese thought he was going too big, he would have said something. I think it's a very low lawyer kind of performance. And
I will say, did you see the clip of the Republicans telling the reporter to shut up this morning on Capitol Hill? Watch that and then come back to me, because I think that's exactly what Brendan Fraser, like literally, like this, like 87-year-old woman went to a reporter and said, "You shut up." And I was like, that's Brendan Fraser. So I think to me, he nailed it. But also, like, none of those, except Lily Gladstone, it was very hard for me to see these characters as people. So like, it was like, okay.
It's a very small role too. He's not like, he
kept me awake at the end.
He definitely did. He needed to calm down, according to Taylor Swift. But that was still hilarious. I love how everything came together for that song to be playing during one of his outbursts. But he doesn't take away. I mean, if I were to say my favorite performances in the movie, he would rank
Lily Gladstone
low. I don't know where Lily Gladstone is obviously
and Lily Gladstone.
Lily Gladstone. You don't really need to mention anyone else, to be honest. But I think we can talk about the performances. I think Leo. This is lots of people said it was his best performance. I think personally, maybe this is an unpopular opinion. What's Eating Gilbert Grape is honestly maybe my favorite performance from him. Do you agree?
I love that movie. It's definitely in the top. I would definitely put it in the top 5 of Leo, maybe top 3. I think his best is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that was the one.
Oh, interesting.
He was asked to do the most, as far as like there are certain like scenes where he's acting like when he's acting as I think the best acting that Leonardo DiCaprio has ever done is the scenes with Julia Butters. It is absolutely
She
that's the
agrees
little
in said
girl.
scenes. Yeah,
Yes,
that was the
it
best
is
acting I've ever seen.
brilliant. And he took the piss out of himself. I think after The Revenant, after his long search for Oscar, we see this a lot. When they stop wanting to go for the Oscar, they give their best work. And to me, that's his best.
Not
And
for
this,
Brendan Fraser.
well, I don't count this,
No,
the same way
know.
I don't count like, whatever, like Minions, The Rise of or Transformers, Rise of the Beasts as Michelle Yeoh's post-Oscar win performance.
No, Haunting in Venice. No.
Oh my God. But so I don't know. To me, with DiCaprio here, I think that again, the character to me was so stale that he wasn't being given much to do. I also think that maybe some of these issues that I'm having could have been solved if the movie was shorter. But I think the more time you spent with these same two white guys, I was like, I really don't find them that interesting. And
No.
I think, yeah. And so, and to me, I do think De Niro was better in The Irishman. If we're going to compare two late stage De Niro performances, I think the work De Niro does. The work De Niro does in the last like third of the movie post the assassination of whoever, I'm not going to spoil it. But like from that moment on, I think that's some of the best acting De Niro's done in a while. But honestly, like I think one of his best performances recently is Silver Linings Playbook. I think he should have won the Oscar for that. Like I think he's great in that movie. So to me, this was in many ways De Niro just being De Niro, and you can just see that Scorsese has such protection over his longtime collaborator, and that's what I think you get out of this performance more than anything else.
Yeah, for sure. I guess before we move on to the like specific stuff in terms of the categories, there was one review I saw on Letterboxd. I forget who said it, but it was something like this: if this story enrages you, use that enragement to get engaged in the way the indigenous communities today are still affected and oppressed. And I think that is a good note to end on before we get into Oscar chances. They are still very much facing a lot of issues, and they deserve to have their voices heard more.
Oklahoma can't teach this period of history,
which is insane. My God. Insane stuff.
And I just want to end with this, but this is the problem I feel like when we always center it on the white guys, because the white guys always manage to survive. They always manage to fight
that's American society for you.
I get it. But what I think is more powerful, this is why if we want to go into what Black Panther actually did, is that it took a narrative that we are accustomed to seeing white people thrive in and gave it to a racial underclass, allowed them to completely tell the story their way. And now that changed the way that people, especially Black audiences and Black characters, are perceived in movies. I don't think the good that I think Scorsese wants to achieve with this movie, I don't think happens because of the way he centers the story. We need to tell these people's stories, not the white. Like, to me, I just don't think that we can be in a world where like we condemn Green Book for doing the same thing that this movie does. I'm sorry. I think Mahershala Ali. Mahershala Ali, and I think Green Book is not as epic and it's not as, it doesn't have the same gravitas. But to me, Mahershala Ali and Lily Gladstone are doing the same thing. They're trying to fight for narrative attention and giving the more fully realized characters, and they should be the centers of their stories. So
I think the Green Book story, that was an issue because it was from complete ignorance. I think Scorsese is very aware of the way he's telling the story. I think he pretty clearly addresses it.
I agree with that.
It's also kind of about history and who gets to tell it in a way.
So, and maybe that's me holding him to a higher standard than I hold Peter Farrelly. That could also be it. I just hope that we learn that if we want to change the conversation, then we have to change who's speaking. We have to change who's doing the conversing. I hope Lily Gladstone, and we can get into this now as far as her chances, because we'll see. I do think she's probably she's in win she's in win competitive territory, and if she does win, then I do think the movie, despite these issues, did do good, and that is solely because of her. And I think that would be an achievement. So that's just something to keep in mind, that this is beyond the movie itself, and it's about the moment. And if Lily Gladstone can amass this, it's possible. I don't think it's. I'm more cautious about her after seeing the film, which I think is probably an unlikely opinion, I worry, because you've seen Poor Things, I worry about her against Emma Stone.
Yeah.
And we haven't even seen The Color Purple. So
yeah. What I worry about in terms of her Oscar chances, I think she has the best narrative probably of anyone, for sure. I think if anyone in this movie is to win an acting category, she is the best shot. And I think it would really be a bad look if another performer, one of the bad guys, won and she didn't.
They're not going to win.
There's
no way. Listen, I've Downey is locked. I will go to Vegas now. Downey is locked, and I don't think DiCaprio can take it away from Murphy or Cooper. There's no way that he, snivels his way in between the two. So I don't think so. That's not a possibility where the other two win. Do you think she should be in supporting?
I think in terms of screen time and the way the story is told, she should be in supporting. But it was a decision she made herself. That she wanted to be represented as a lead, and what that does in terms of history making as well. So if that's what she wants, I think she'll still be nominated. I don't think she will win, to be honest, because...
Do you think she would win in supporting?
I do think she would. Yeah, I think she would.
What do you think is more important?
I think what's more important is up to her, to be honest. I don't really want to decide that for her. I think she decided being lead actress was more important than support. I'm sure she had lots of conversations with people about this, and it was an important decision. And she came to this conclusion, and if that's what she wants, it's perfectly fine by me. I don't really want to decide for her.
Yeah, I'm not.
She could still win.
She could still win. I just think that in the end, even though, when you win the Oscar, it's important, and I think we do this to win. People like us may remember who's nominated, but it's not going to matter to most people. And I think also Oscar winner is better than Oscar nominee. And I think especially because Lily Gladstone, she doesn't get the same opportunities. And so I think having an Oscar to her is going to help her.
I think this being considered in lead, though, will consider her for more. I mean, what we see with native performers are often they are supporting characters. I think this will cement her more as going forward a potential lead to cast in films, which I think is also important to tell, as we're talking about, those stories from their perspective.
I agree.
Even though
this
movie wasn't.
I just worry that March will come and we're going to see the awards go by where she doesn't win. And I think it's going to matter more than, let's say, Michelle Williams when she doesn't go home with an Oscar. It's going to matter more that Lily Gladstone doesn't. If Emma Stone,
Michelle Williams has plenty more opportunities.
But I'm just saying, the fact that Michelle Williams did the same thing she did, where we assumed it was supporting, went to lead, but it doesn't matter. Michelle Williams is still going to work. It doesn't matter if she doesn't win the Oscar. I do think it's a bigger hit. The Oscar can open up more doors to Lily Gladstone if she wins it, and I want her to win it too. Despite my issues with the performance, I think that she is a beautiful, soulful performer, and she carries this movie with everything she's got. She is able to steal focus from DiCaprio and De Niro. It's incredible.
Everyone leaving the film, pretty much everyone says that they wanted more from her, which I think is a sign. I think this was my experience. I think it was probably most people's experience. When she was on the screen, your eyes were, no matter who else was on the screen, what else was happening, you were immediately drawn to her. She carries a lot of silent power as well, as we mentioned. It's a very, as we're talking about with a lot of performances this year, it's a very not in the words. It's very much in what she does facially and with her expressions.
Her screams, everything.
Her grief scream is going to be just like Toni Collette in Hereditary. Her scream during that, those are both forever, just permanently in my mind.
To me, I'm a big fan of the musical Wicked, and it's celebrating its 20th anniversary this week. And there's a fun story that Stephen Schwartz, the composer, talked about, which is when he was testing it, his friend told him, anytime those two girls are on stage, you're golden. And anytime they're not, it's a problem. And that's how I feel about this. Anytime she's on screen, we're golden. Anytime she's not, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. So anyway, we'll see. I think it's possible. I think also because she could be what gets represented and what gets awarded for the movie. And given that the movie does seem to have a lot of support, I'm definitely in the minority, I feel. That could be...
People have issues, but I think it's overall positive.
That could be the we're going to award... The same thing with Green Book, as far as we acknowledge there's issues, but Mahershala Ali ain't one of them, and we're going to honor him. As far as if we're looking at the performances.
They did also honor the screenplay and picture. But
don't remind me.
We don't need to think about that.
More than picture. it winning
The
screenplay.
screenplay.
Ugh.
The screenplay
Nick
picks out in a
Nick
lot.
Vallelonga has 2 Oscars, but Bradley Cooper has 0. No, thank you.
Yeah. She also, yes, she was great in Reservation Dogs, and
Yeah.
the few scenes that she did have. Most people think she would consider her lead. I don't know personally. Let's see.
It can go either way.
Yeah, I think she would have won in supporting actress pretty handily, to be honest. I think that's the category that's most up in the air right now in terms of who's going to win or even get nominated. And I think she was pretty safely going to.
I just think what I think of is Viola Davis, which was one of those situations where she could have gone both. She went lead for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and the people I think you could argue she didn't have the screen time that Frances McDormand has. I think this is just the trend we see. When we see people on the edge and they go lead, Glenn Close being an anomalous year because that was a movie that nobody saw. But when we are looking at maybe a Best Picture lineup where all of the movies are in Best Picture, I do think Lily Gladstone, Best Actress, yeah.
Yes.
We definitely,
which has only happened 3 times in the history of the Oscars, by the way, guys. So it's not very likely.
I worry.
Yeah, and I think it is an issue where Poor Things is Emma Stone. Who else is there? Sandra Hüller, or Anna Fall is Sandra Hüller. Carey Mulligan.
Margot Robbie is Barbie.
Margot Robbie is Barbie. Fantasia, I think, is Color Purple. We haven't seen it yet, but Carey Mulligan honestly is Maestro. She's in it as much as Bradley Cooper is. It's very much a co-lead kind of deal, whereas I think this is very much DiCaprio's movie.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like Jennifer Connelly in A Beautiful Mind. Like wherever you put her, she's going to be a very win likely. So you just have to play the season. And I'm looking at the season, and Best Actress is way more competitive than Best Supporting Actress, and I want to see her win. So put her in supporting. That's just, again, my philosophy on this. I understand that people have different perspectives on it, but if I'm looking at this movie, I personally don't think it's a lead performance. I don't think to me, a lead performance means you're motivating the story along, and she's a very reactive character, in my opinion.
She is. And she does some great. They say acting is reacting, and I think she does some incredible heart. That is what they say.
I know that's what they say, and that is.
It's such a simple. What you would call it, simplification of acting. But yeah, she is so heartbreaking and so moving, and I do love her in it. I don't even know who I would vote for, to be honest. I think I do. Emma Stone just had a lot more. Yeah, Emma Stone had a lot more to do. Carey Mulligan, I think, has the most baby performance out of anyone I've seen. Which is interesting. But yeah, I don't think she'll win. But
I don't know if Maestro is in a big way or going to be like flatlined. It's so strange, that movie, because that one seems the most Oscar baity of all of them.
I think it's in a big way, to be honest.
For wins or nominations? Okay.
Yeah.
Could it be The Irishman?
I don't know about wins.
Get a lot of nominations, no wins.
If it wins, it's gonna win an acting category. It's not gonna win anything. Maybe cinematography, but I don't think so. Makeup. Duh. It's gonna win makeup, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
It'll win that.
Makeup and acting go hand in hand.
They do, which is Mulligan or Cooper could both win. They're both very showy.
I'm very scared.
You can tell.
Which I hate that I'm scared. Why? Bradley
category.
Cooper. Oh. We've been rooting for you all along.
It's a good performance. I wouldn't be upset if he won. I do like Cillian Murphy and Oppenheimer more.
I know. I gotta see that show.
And he's good in it. I think his direction is more impressive than his acting in it, to be honest. Carey Mulligan, I think, Carey Mulligan has a much more emotional performance than he does. He is a very charming, charismatic kind of performance. He has a few emotional moments, but it's not quite as showy as hers, I think. But I don't know. I seem to be in the minority on the film. It seems like everyone loves it. I don't, but
I'll probably love it,
when
and then we can balance out this conversation.
Yeah. It's like A Star Is Born, but in a basic biopic format. That's what I'd say. Yeah. But on to Best Actor. He'll be nominated. I don't think he'll win.
Yes, I agree. Let's move on.
That's pretty much it. I do love how everyone's talking about him doing the sad emoji face throughout the whole movie, which he very much is. It's interesting I don't think he's ever played a character quite this pathetic and sad and ugly, but apparently attractive for the time. But yeah,
he is not. He's not an attractive. They go out of the way to say that he is not like there are facial features that make him not attractive in the book. So I appreciate that they kept
Yeah.
true to that in
The
his
teeth.
depiction
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
He's
All
got some
right,
heavy teeth.
supporting
De
actor,
Niro? He'll
same
be
thing.
nominated. I don't think
He's not going to win.
he's got a better shot than Leo though, I think. But I think RDJ is just it's hard to see anyone else.
How are you going to look like? And again, we can get into this. Maybe this can be a director too. I understand it. For people who love the movie, they love these people. They love De Niro. They love Scorsese. But are you really like? How are you going to make the case that they should get like Hilary Swank doesn't come around every so often where they feel like we need to give it to her twice before we give it to her direct competition once. I just don't see the world where they don't give it to Downey and Nolan and they feel like we're going to give it to De Niro and Scorsese again. I just don't see that logic.
Yeah, I think we can move on to director because I don't think De Niro. I think he'll be in contention and be nominated like everywhere, but I think Gosling and Ruffalo will split if they're both nominated. They're very similar performances, so I think if you're inclined to vote for that kind of performance, they'll maybe split votes with each other.
Yeah.
I think RDJ, if he's able to give speeches and campaign, which De Niro isn't really going to do.
Imagine
De Niro's not a campaigner, and if he gives a speech, it'll be like Joe Pesci's "Thank you, it was an honor," and that's it. I think RDJ. That's it, pretty much is all I'll say. Director, it is because in Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan isn't like, I won't spoil it, but he doesn't quite connect with the audience the same way as Scorsese does at the end of this film. So it might be
twice
directly.
Twice he does
visually,
that too.
Yeah.
Visually once, but he's in there twice.
He is in there twice. He
Which to me ruined the second time because it felt like a party trick at that point. Like if you're going to do that, don't do it the first time. I know it was only audio. For the people who haven't seen it, they're like, what the hell are we talking about?
Yeah.
But,
we're not spoiling it though, so you're welcome.
We're not.
But yeah, I think if they want to award Scorsese, we can maybe talk about that too. I think this is where they would do it. I think there's the whole angle of the adapted screenplay. They've changed the perspective of the book, which they have. It's not from the FBI perspective.
I know.
Now it's from Ernest's perspective.
But my Lord, it's just, to me, it wasn't a good adaptation. So I'm like, really? Adapted screenplay? Okay. But I grant you it's a way to honor the movie. So it could happen.
I think adapted screenplay will be one of the most important categories in terms of what wins Best Picture, because we've got Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Killers of the Flower Moon here.
But it could also be Oppenheimer's winning everything else. Let's give adapted screenplay. That's the consolation prize, which screenplay often is. Women Talking, Get Out. These are the movies that we love that we maybe 10 years from now we'll be giving to Best Picture in our retrospect.
Yeah,
but
picture winners often, they sometimes don't, like Power of the Dog. Power of the Dog. Who am I talking about? Well, there's Nomadland is what I'm thinking of. Where they win picture and director, but not screenplay. But oftentimes they do win screenplay. So I think that it is still important in that.
To me, I think that a lot of times also screenplay is like Everything Everywhere. It's the stuff that like, oh my God, how did you conceive of this story, this idea? I think the stories of Poor Things and Oppenheimer, I think are maybe going to stay. I'm interested again. I think we're in the hype of Killers of the Flower Moon. It just came out. Come December, January, let's see if we remember it, because we know that Oppenheimer, it's already proven that we're going to be still talking about it. Poor Things, you've seen. I imagine that's not going to be one that people are going to forget so instantly. Let's see how we remember. That will not
win Best Picture, though. That could win screenplay, but it's not
Poor Things
anywhere. It's not win. That's Poor Things.
But still, my point being is like we'll remember it. Let's see how Killers of the Flower Moon is remembered, because I think it will be remembered for Lily Gladstone and maybe some of the technical elements, which we're about to get in. But I think to win screenplay is almost like if Best Director is your secondary Best Picture prize, this is the tertiary Best Picture prize. Like, that's how I look at this. So we'll see. We'll see.
Well, getting into the technicals, I think there's two that it could possibly win. The rest will all be nominations.
I think we agree. Let's see.
Is one of them this one?
No.
Okay. I don't think it will win, but I think Rodrigo Prieto is having a year with this in Barbie. This isn't very showy cinematography. It's very nice movement and framing, but the lighting is not very special, to be honest. I agree with the same thing in Barbie. I think the production design honestly does more work than the cinematography in both of those movies. So I think he's benefited by the production design in terms of how they interpret his cinematography in both of them.
It reminds me of Matthew Libatique doing Venom and A Star is Born on the same day. is Barbie and
Yeah.
Kills the Flower Moon by
Yeah.
the same DP. Yeah, to me, I think that this could get nominated. I think it has probably a good chance of getting nominated. This was just my own thing. I felt the movie felt a little small, and maybe I also think that I might have an issue. I will go back and see this movie a second time. I will give it a second chance. There was an issue with the sound mix, and I was worried.
I also had issues with the sound mix.
Did you see it in IMAX?
No.
Oh, okay, because I saw it in IMAX and I was worried maybe it was the IMAX transfer. So maybe I'll watch it at home and maybe like it'll be because it was configured.
There
for
were some
Apple
audio
TV.
and also white noise issues that I had. Some scenes.
But to me, I don't know. The cinematography felt very small to me. And there were there were a couple shots that I'll remember, like the one of the oil at the beginning.
That's why it's
and
the poster.
And the like when the fires are going up and you see it through like that was a good shot, but really good. I don't think this has the same, even like going up to like Scorsese stuff like Hugo. Like I remember more visuals from that movie than this one.
Surprisingly flat. And I think that does come down to a lot of the lighting. I think the lighting, they could have done more special stuff. But I do.
Oh yeah.
It's a
Western. Come on. Like we should be talking about the cinematography more than anything else.
Yeah.
That was very fast.
But one, I do think the other one, I think you probably agree with this. I think it can win score. I think the score is very good. And Robbie Robertson, we're talking about honoring the native people involved with the film. It's really just him and Lily Gladstone that represent that community. He's also sadly passed away, so this would be the last time to reward him. Yeah. And the score is really good. I've listened to the score on his own sense. I don't think it's quite as good as like Oppenheimer or Poor Things. I love the Poor Things score, or even Spider-Verse. I think all of those are probably better, but I wouldn't be upset with this winning.
I think it's Oppenheimer versus Killers for this category.
For the win, yes.
For the win. And I'm leaning Oppenheimer, but I also think because to me, Oppenheimer almost feels like an opera. Like there's so much underscoring there, and there's so much theme, like especially because Jack will say that Christopher Nolan is not the most thematically prescient filmmaker, and I think for the people who feel that way, the score does a lot. And contributes. I would say
he has more emotion issues than he does theme issues, but I think Oppenheimer has some of his best emotional work.
Yeah. So I think original score could go this movie's way, and I think best actress, best original score. That's a nice little, and maybe best adapted screenplay. It's better than The Irishman.
Picture-winning package, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes. I don't know.
I don't think this will win picture.
All right, let's talk about this because I do think this is going to hurt it. It is very similar to Oppenheimer. There are scenes like when we got into the third act and we were doing a courtroom drama, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, not that they ripped it off, but I was just like, oh my God, it's like Deep Impact Armageddon. We have two movies from auteur filmmakers talking about these horrible tragedies of like 20th century, early 20th century America. And they have similar aesthetics, similar performances, like it boggled my mind. And I do think that's going to hurt it because I do think Oppenheimer to me feels more fresh. It feels more, has more ingenuity behind it. And I think that's what's going to be more worthy of recognizing beyond the fact too, that all those people, except Ludwig Göransson, have not won. So like we can go into film editing, Thomas Schoonmaker, a lot of titan of this industry, and paved the way for Jennifer Lame. But I think Jennifer Lame is the more exciting editing feat.
Oppenheimer has a much faster pace to it. It flies by. I wouldn't say this flies by. But this also, the story is much more bleak and depressing.
It doesn't want to fly by.
It's a slow burn. It doesn't. It wants you to live in that. And it's not fun to live in.
The thing that some people didn't like about Oppenheimer that I loved was the third act. Killers of the Flower Moon is
the best act.
Yeah. Killers of the Flower Moon. Yeah, but for the people who think the movie's going to end when the bomb goes off, they're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
I didn't spoil Oppenheimer for anybody, but I did tell them, when the bomb goes off, you have an hour left. Just know that. And I think that helps people.
And it's the best.
The Killers of the Flower Moon is like the third act for the whole movie. It's that bleak, but I think that's part of my problem.
The third act of Oppenheimer moves very fast, though.
It's like it moves fast, but because you're already having arrived on the roller coaster and the thrills and the optimism and like the light, like the pursuits of science that the first two acts provide, and that's why the third act can be what it is. I think that's the balancing act that is missing for me for Killers, that I think will hurt it for winning best editing. Also because she's won, and she's wonderful.
Yeah.
But like John Williams isn't winning when he, every time he goes up for best original score these days, and I don't see the same thing happening for Thelma Schoonmaker.
But she'll still be nominated just like Williams. But yeah, I don't think she'll win. I also think Oppenheimer, just in terms of picture chances, has much more rewatchability. I don't know how many people are going to want to watch Killers because it's very depressing. It's a slow burn.
And there are no like scenes or like sequences that you want to rewatch. That's the thing about Oppenheimer, and that comes from Nolan's background, like the Trinity sequence, the back and forth courtroom drama. Like there are certain sequences that are so arresting.
Like speech scene is, I think, still one of the best scenes.
Yeah, like that, and I think that again, and those are flavors. Some people, prefer the Scorsese variant, but I think more people, and maybe the two of us, lean the Nolan route as far as that. That's what we like when we go back to rewatch a movie. And I don't think you win Best Picture if you're not rewatchable. 12 Years a Slave doesn't come around too often where you see it once and you don't have to see it again and you're voting for it for Best Picture.
12 Years a Slave
have to be able to rewatch it.
Has a happier ending than this movie, to be honest.
That's true.
It's not like it's like a happiness and sunshine, but it has a happy ending compared to this and compared to Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer doesn't have a positive ending, but it's not as deeply bleak and depressing and as sad as this.
But Oppenheimer's ending is so brilliant because I think just that last line is so masterful.
The way it parallels the beginning. Yeah.
You're blown away that he pulled it off. And I think the joy you have that Nolan pulled it off is kind of what subdues the tragedy of the ending in some ways.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah. And so what was the other one you thought could win tech-wise?
I thought film editing, it could.
Film editing, okay.
I think film editing and original score are its best chances outside of Gladstone, and then maybe screenplay. But I do think, the more I think about it, I just think, and I'm happy because Jennifer Lane is my favorite current editor working today. She did Marriage Story. She was one of the 3 editors on Wakanda Forever. She did Tenet for Nolan. So I'm very happy for her. It's definitely a well-deserved. And I think this is great because we need more female editors, the same way that Hildur Gudnadottir winning for Joker for score was such a big deal. I'm happy that we're going to get somebody other than Thelma Schoonmaker, who's a female editor, getting this award. So, as far as costume and production design, it could happen. I think
it'll be nominated for production design.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be nominated for costumes. I had it in sound before. I did take it out of sound because I do think there are sound issues with the movie, which you mentioned. I don't think that was really I think that's an overall issue. I've heard other people mention it. And I also, there wasn't like with Power of the Dog, that was a big picture contender that still got into sound. There's stuff that you remember, like the comb thing. Like there's some sound bits that you remember. There's not, besides like Lily Gladstone's scream, much sound stuff
that's the highest peak.
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser is the highest peak of the audio.
Yeah. And the Taylor Swift undertrack throughout the whole movie was a great sound choice. But
so all right, so then let me ask you,
but
what do you think is going to be the nomination tally? Because we've talked about what we think it's going to win. What do you think is the nomination tally?
Picture, director, actress, actor, supporting actor, adapted screenplay, cinematography, original score, editing, production design. Did I say that? No. And I think that's it. I don't think it'll get sound or costumes.
It's the same as The Irishman.
10 and probably no wins.
It could. We really have to see how much of a force Oppenheimer is, because if this is looked at as it's good, but it's no Oppenheimer, that'll hurt it.
I mean, the last 2 years we've had movies winning 6+ Oscars, so I don't think they'll be fine.
Oh, yeah. Everything Everywhere winning is a little bit different than Dune winning it, but yes,
it is. But I think Oppenheimer will be a balance of both of them, where Everything Everywhere is winning mostly above the line.
That's what
Dune
I'm excited about.
Below the line, so it'll be a mix of both.
I also think, and that's another thing with DiCaprio and De Niro, is that it kind of hurts that Downey and Murphy are kind of giving similar performances.
They haven't had their time yet. Both of them have had their time.
They haven't had their time. And they're a winning combo, I feel. I think it's very likely that Murphy and Downey win together.
That's happened with what was it?
Frances McDormand and Sam Rockwell.
Yes, but it also happened. I think I read somewhere like that exact winning package has happened once of the past like 2 or 3 decades. I think it was Dallas Buyers Club and
Yep.
Mystic River both had Best Actor and Supporting Actor win combos. So that could be it for this decade.
Yeah. And it would be, I don't think you would find a more deserving pair than the two of them.
Definitely Cillian Murphy. I don't think
Uh,
Robert Downey Jr. is Oscar worthy in that, but we'll be talking about that the whole awards season because
I know.
I'm sure he'll be winning plenty. And hopefully Cillian winning as well. But I would say I like every other performance that could potentially be nominated in that category more than Robert Downey Jr. But we'll see.
We'll
Melton,
see.
Defoe,
Until we get
Ruffalo.
the J.K. Simmons nomination for being the Ricardos.
Yeah, thankfully I don't think he's in a movie this year to sneak in. So that's really it. We can have some comments that we can quickly address, and then
yes. Thank you all for
on
joining
our
us for
way.
the
Yes, it
premiere.
was fun.
I don't even know what season this is at this point.
It's
I think
episode
it's 3.
47. I know that much. I
That's
think it's
true.
season 3.
Yeah, because
Season 3,
we
episode
the
47.
current show started for 2021. I think that's when
It did.
It's
We started
Black
for the
Widow
doom year.
brought us together.
It did. Black Widow of all movies did bring
Yeah.
us together.
Of course.
Let's see. Coleman won for Borderline supporting role and lead. Yes, I do think, as you mentioned though, Anthony, that was a different year in terms of competition.
And Coleman, the thing with Coleman is that you had 3 people that could not all be in the same category. So what they did smartly is that the 2 Oscar winners are in the same category. Because I would argue Emma Stone is the lead of that movie, but you're not going to put Olivia Colman in the same category as Rachel Weisz, who's already won an Oscar. Like you, and also Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone are jockeying for the same. Like their characters are similar in their pursuits. That was a very well orchestrated thing, and obviously it paid off. And then you had the Glenn Close thing, which was like it was a low priority screener. Nobody cared about the wife. Nobody saw the wife, and they saw the most nominated movie that year, tied with Roma, The Favorite, and they weren't giving it anything else, so they gave it Olivia Colman. And they assumed Glenn was taken care of by other people. That was also the thing with Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
It's different with Gladstone because there's no supporting performance that they could be putting up in actress in her place. It's a Michelle Williams situation. You can go A or B. And with Michelle Williams, again, I argued the same thing last year. That's a supporting performance. Sammy Fabelman is the main character moving the plot forward. It's just unfair. It's the same way it was unfair that Viola Davis was in supporting for Fences, because she is motivating that story forward. That was the thing. I think that Lily Gladstone has less of an impact on the story in Killers than Viola Davis does in Fences. And that's my test of like, where do you go?
I agree. Yeah. If Emma Stone wins for Poor Things, it would be the second time Yorgos Lanthimos directed a lead actress win. It would be. And I don't know if she will win, to be honest. I'm still up in the air about actress because that is a performance that is nothing like that has won before. And it's in a film that's, I know lots of people say Everything Everywhere. No, what Emma Stone does in that movie is nowhere close to what. Like,
I think it helps that it is Emma Stone.
It does help that it's Emma Stone, but the weirdness of Poor Things makes Everything Everywhere look like a Disney G-rated movie. This is like Everything Everywhere had a very wholesome center to it that I think Poor Things doesn't quite have. And the performance, I would love for her to win. I have doubts. I think she can still obviously win. I think her, Mulligan, and Gladstone are the only win contenders.
Let's play the game a little bit. I think it's unlikely that Color Purple wins 2 acting awards, and we both think Danielle Brooks is probably out in front for supporting actress. All right, so let's put Fantasia to the side. Carey Mulligan, they've passed her up many times before. I think all the attention is going to be on Bradley Cooper. It's the Bradley Cooper performance. It's the Bradley Cooper show. Despite her being top billed, I think it's going to be easy to.
She's the emotional center of the film, though. She is the heart, and in the third act, it's all really about her. And she's.
Do you really see a world where she wins and he doesn't? That just seems odd for a movie that he directed.
Yeah, I think it's possible because I think you leave the movie thinking about her more and the emotional impact that she had.
And also, I do think that despite her pushing herself, like Lakeith Stanfield happened. We can't, they sometimes do make their mind for them, and Lily Gladstone might end up in supporting. I think Emma Stone, the bravado of that performance is so strong, even from not seeing it. I look forward to seeing it. And what you're saying, it's what happened with Olivia Colman. People are like, this is too weird. It's not going to be. It's like, if it's a good performance and it has Emma Stone, this, this could be a Kate Blanchett moment. You win two very closely next to each
It
other.
could be. It could be.
And I do think
Very well.
she is the Meryl Streep. She's the Kate Blanchett of her generation. And both of those ladies won Best Actress, or their first two Oscars very closely next to each other.
Same with, didn't Hilary Swank as well and Jodie Foster?
Oh, yeah.
Both of them did as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's a three-way tie between, yeah, those are your top three contenders. That would be a great
until we see Color Purple, and then we'll see where Fantasia.
Yeah, I think she'll be nomination potential. I don't really know about win potential.
She could be Jennifer Hudson, kind of just come in there, surprise everybody.
Though.
That's true, and that's why Danielle Brooks is going to probably do very well.
Think, yeah.
Having seen the show on Broadway and knowing it won a Tony, like I'm just like it's a good role if she capitalizes on it. So it could be a four-way tie.
Yeah, Coleman. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Cooper could win. It's very showy. I like Cillian Murphy and Andrew Scott more. But yeah,
we got to see. Because if Downey is the acting win for that movie, and Bradley Cooper has been passed up time and time and time again, it might just be his time. And then, and then Cillian Murphy will win for a movie. When Timothée Chalamet finally is ready to win, then Cillian Murphy will come in, and that's just how it's going to happen.
That's the way it is. Sadly, they never win for when they deserve it.
No.
But I mean, he's very good in Maestro. I would not be upset with him winning at all. It's not like Rami Malek, where I was kind of upset that performance won.
Yeah,
this is a great performance.
He directed it. I'm looking forward to it, and I think, listen, if Bradley Cooper wins an Oscar, I will sleep soundly at night because he deserves it. He just deserved it for the last movie he did.
I agree. American Fiction won adapted screenplay. Poor Things is ineligible at WGA. Not Poor Things. American Fiction, I do think is being a little underrated in terms of if it does get nominated, it has like from what I hear about it, the perspective and vibe and feeling of like recent Best Picture winners, where it's
Spotlight?
a little more crowd pleasing than all these other movies we have in contention besides Holdovers. Okay. But this is about things, because Holdovers isn't really like about important social stuff. It's really just a feel good movie. Whereas this is, this is feel good and emotional and crowd pleasing.
American Fiction seems like stuff. American Fiction seems like the type of movie that would win Best Picture like 20 years ago. Like it has the feel good elements. It has an important bent
Coda,
to what it's saying.
Green Book. I mean, some of the recent winners.
That's true.
Fit that pretty well.
So yes, to answer the question, I do think it could, especially if they think Oppenheimer is taking care of in other categories, and Poor Things and Killers of the Flower Moon don't measure up on the script level. That's not where those movies truly shine. And if they want to give it something, if this turns into it could have the Get Out package of, picture, actor, screenplay. I know Get Out also a director, but it could have that, and they want to give it something, and so they give it screenplay. I think that's possible.
Yeah, I agree. No, and
there's a missing word there. I think go to the Razzies, Best Worst Picture. Though it would not. It's not my least favorite movie of the year.
No, that would be The Flash.
That would definitely see. We agree on something.
Yeah, there we go.
We agree on a lot of things. Oh my god!
Yeah.
But Quantumania is not even my bottom 5. That's how bad some of these movies have been this year.
I don't think it's in my bottom 5 either.
Oh my god!
And The Curse, I wish I could have seen it at NIF, but
you and your NIF.
But it could help. I don't think it would really have much of an impact on the race, though. To be honest.
My god, this has been Quantumania is I think my 7th. It's The Flash, Indiana Jones 5, The Creator.
Oh wow.
Did not like that, A Haunting in Venice, which I'm in the minority. I thought that was abysmal. And I liked I liked Murder on the Orient Express. I didn't like Death on the Nile. Shazam 2, Transformers 6, and then Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yeah, that's a bad group. But
yeah,
blockbusters are failing us this year, for sure. But yeah,
traditional blockbusters. Oppenheimer is now a blockbuster. Barbie's a blockbuster. Yeah. Taylor Swift is a blockbuster.
She is, and she never fails us.
Never.
Any final thoughts before we end said stream? Our return to weekly Oscar talk, where we will return next week. Who does that? We'll not be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's next week. I'm not sure what else is coming out that we would talk about.
The
we'll find
Holdovers is
something.
doing a early
That's
screening,
true.
so
That's
we
true.
might be able to talk about that. But yeah,
I'll have to
well,
look into
listen,
that.
for new listeners and new viewers, we tend to do a new, we'll do a spotlight on a category. We'll give you predictions.
Yeah,
We'll talk about the
yeah.
news. We'll do
We'll do that next.
reviews. So we're very excited to have you. Thank you for people who've joined us before. We know listen, we give you the lengthy conversations and we hope you enjoy the full context.
Yeah.
And yeah, just thank you always. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for commenting. We're very happy to be here and very much looking forward to this season.
Yes, very exciting. If you have a category that you are dying for us to do a spotlight on, you can comment down below. If there's one that everyone wants, we can do that next week. Yeah, thank you all for watching. Like the video, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and we will see you next week. End stream. Goodbye.